Hey stationery friends, today I'm going to talk about my recent travels and what I brought with me for my analog stationery toolkit, when pen-ink combinations go wrong and my recent experience with that, and my latest pen desire. I traveled for work to the beautiful city of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and it was absolutely incredible to step off the plane and experience spring in full force compared to the city that I live in, where spring is really still trying its best to arrive. The beautiful greens, the cherry blossom trees of Vancouver, the flowers that were out was just a very refreshing change. The funny thing is, as I was leaving my city, they had to de-ice the plane just because there was a snowstorm that morning, so it took a little while to take off. Vancouverites usually take note of how much rain they get, and whenever I travel to Vancouver, I always seem to pick the appropriate time to arrive in the city where there is a lot of sunshine. I've been known to bring the sunshine with me, I suppose. At least that's what my coworkers joke around about. Regardless, I got lucky. It was raining literally the day before I arrived, and for the 4 days that I was out there, it was absolutely beautiful, sunny weather. One of my favorite things about traveling is bringing my stationery toolkit and always trying to figure out what is going to be the most appropriate tools to put into my toolkit while I travel. Depending on how busy I am with work stuff, how much free time I get to myself in the evenings, I tend to either scale up or scale down. And my favorite everyday carry bag when it comes to my stationery toolkit is this beautiful Mach 2 Indiana Jones replica bag. I absolutely love this bag. I don't know if I've talked about this before on the channel, but I'm a big Indiana Jones fan. I love the movies. Yes, they're dated, and yes, some of it might be politically incorrect these days, but I just love the adventurous feel. And one of the things that always drew me right away to the whole Indiana Jones look and aesthetic in terms of practical approach was his beautiful stationery bag. So this is a gas mask bag from World War I, if I remember correctly. And Indiana Jones had repurposed it to be his everyday carry bag. I received this as a gift. This was bought from Magnolia Props down in New Zealand, and they've done a really good job of recreating the bag, so it's a very strong replica. It has little details like this, which effectively allowed the gas mask wearer to tie the bag around their waist. It's got a tiny little pocket on the side here. We'll take a closer look, but I just love the aesthetic of it, the leather strap that comes with it. And I usually have this slung around across my chest, and it has really good organization inside of it. I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that I like to put into this, of course, is my trusted traveler's notebook. And in this trip in particular, given that I wasn't going to have very much time, it had been a while since I traveled to Vancouver, I wasn't going to bring too much. So what I ended up bringing with me was the traveler's notebook with a sketch refill, a lightweight paper refill. So this would be my one encompassing journal for long-form journaling, short-form journaling, taking quick notes, and then the sketchbook for if I ever got a moment to actually sketch. And I liked the fact that it was in a small form factor, and as always, this is my go-to notebook for pretty much everything when it comes down to only being able to bring one notebook. When I have a bit more free time to myself, and if I'm extending my stay in Vancouver or traveling, I will bring my long-form journal with me, my A5 notebook. However, I knew I wouldn't have very much time here, so I wanted to go for compact as much as possible. So the traveler's notebook in here. The other thing that I really like to do is read, so I brought my Kindle. I love my Kindle for just the fact that I can take quite a few books with me, which is exactly what I did. So any moment that I got to myself, and if it wasn't at work, I would whip out my Kindle and have a good read. Love reading. So that was my two main essentials in the stationery toolkit. Again, on longer trips, if I've got a nice paperback, I might bring that. If it's small, it depends on what kind of trip I'm doing here and whether I have the luxury of carrying more or having to really be efficient with my carry on, I guess, in terms of how much stuff I'm bringing. And the last thing I brought in here is my pigment marker in a 0.5 for sketching. I should mention the writing instrument. So this was the pigment marker that I brought for sketching. And then on my traveler's notebook, I brought my Coeco brass as well as the TWSBI 580. The Coeco brass I had inked up with a amethyst purple, and the TWSBI 580 I have currently inked up with an Amoiro. No, sorry, it's inked up with a Kujaku from Iroshizuku. Thought they were pretty good spring colors to bring with me here. So that was my main travel kit items aside from my own work haul and clothes and things like that. But let's take a closer look at my stationery bag here. The Indiana Jones Mach 2 bag is a canvas bag. This is a replica, by the way. This is based on the World War I gas mask bags. And that's what Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones wears in the movies here. And so you can see the authentic stamp. Well, it's not authentic in the sense that the original production run of the Mach 1 version of this bag had these stamps here. This is just a replica that's been recreated. This was gifted to me, and the person who bought it from a place or a store called Magnolia Props over in New Zealand. They do quite a lot of different Hollywood movie props, it seems, and the Indiana Jones bag in particular still is made by them, and they are selling a bit of a modified version of this as well. The modified version specifically here is the inside of the bag and the ability to have a lot more organization on it. I'll talk about that in a second. There's a beautiful leather strap that comes with this bag here. This is what Indy slings across his chest. It's a roller buckle. Aging very beautifully. I've had this bag for about a couple of years now. It's been on my shoulders almost every single day. It's an olive green canvas, which is very durable. It's not waterproofed, so just keep that in mind, although you can do that if you're so inclined. This little tab over here is meant to be on the original gas mask bags. What you would do, or what the soldiers would do, was tuck a little bit of string on this pouch over here, and then pull that out, loop the string through here and around their waist, and tie it around here so that it could function as a bit of a fanny pack or a backpack, I guess. At the bottom of the bag are these breather holes. So obviously, if you're going to be wearing a mask to protect yourself from poison, toxins, and then you put the mask back in the bag, you want those fluids, those gases to leak out, and so that's what these breather holes are for. Nothing fancy on the back, just really durable stitching all the way around. One thing I should mention about the leather strap here is that they are screwed into place, so they're not coming undone anytime soon. It's a very solid screw, you just tighten it up, and they're just on these D-rings on either side of the bag here. It's a snap bag, which I really like. I've seen lots of variations of this type of bag where it's a little strap or a buckle and you loop it through. I like the fact what I've always really enjoyed about the Indy movies is that he quickly reaches in and is able to grab anything he wants or put away anything he wants. So I like the fact that it's a nice snap action there. So here's the inside of the bag. Now, what Magnolia Props did in a modified version of this, so you can buy just the original, which is just basically a big cavern in here with maybe one or two slots for organization. But Magnoli took this a step further, thinking about, I guess, the modern adventurer of the city life and getting to and from work and things like that. And so they added quite a few more pockets in here, which I really, really like. There's a back sleeve and a middle compartment in here. And this can hold up to a 1 liter water bottle or a small water bottle. So that's separated out. And then at the front here, more little pockets. So nice empty space here, a little sleeve here, another couple of sleeves in here, and then your pen sleeve options here as well. So quite a lot of capability and organization, which I really, really like. I always keep a couple of pigment markers in here as of late in terms of sketching. And what I've got inside of this at all times is my Altoids tin. And in here, I've got a little bit of electrical tape just in case I need to tape something together. I've got some emergency dry cologne just in case I smell funky for whatever reason. Basic little organization of a little bit of medication, more medication, and notice the theme. Band-aids for when I'm out and about with my kids, or if I hurt myself. A couple of zip ties if I need to zip tie something together in an emergency. There's always a little ink cartridge just in case I run out of ink. And I've got a nice royal blue in here. Some cash in the background. This has got about 2 feet of electrical tape wrapped around a paper clip. You'll never know when you need this in terms of putting the stuff together, and a sewing kit just in case I need to thread things back together. That's my Altoids tin. That hasn't really changed all that much in the last couple of years of using that. So that always stays inside of here. The other thing that I always keep on me, which you may or may not laugh about, is a pair of camping chopsticks. These are really cool in my opinion. I just think that the idea of having chopsticks on you at all times makes you badass. But that's probably me and me only. But I bought these many, many years ago while getting ready for a camping trip, and we were going to have a lot of ramen noodles on the trip. And I figured I'd bring some chopsticks on me. And I've kept them ever since. They're super lightweight. They come in really handy when you don't have utensils. And I just love the fact that you can have chopsticks on you at all times. So that is one of the things that I keep on me in my everyday carry stationery kit. What do I typically load this with? There's always 2 things that I have in here. There is my traveler's notebook, and that goes in this bag, part of the bag here. And then my Kindle will always go in here, just in the back sleeve. That's basically it, as all the time. I don't typically carry a water bottle with me all that much, just because most times in the city, between work and at home, I have water bottles at the respective places. But the other thing I might carry on me is my Hobonichi, as of late, A6 planner. So I'll just tuck that in here as well. And that's really it. Wearing this makes me feel like Indiana Jones, honestly. Makes me feel like I'm adventuring, that I'm seeking out lost treasures. Say I am walking around with the sense of curiosity, and one of the things that also drew me to cool leather notebook and stationery is I was watching Indiana Jones whip out his diary where he was writing down his archaeological finds, and I find my traveler's notebook is a really good combination with this bag because it very much, with this particular color for me, evokes that. And so that is my everyday carry stationery toolkit bag. Some of the other things that I should mention about my trip. One of the questions I get asked quite frequently, or has come up in discussion, I guess, is how I travel with fountain pens, because they have a tendency to leak when traveling on planes? The easy answer is I just take my traveler's notebook or any pens that I have and put it into my zipper pouch here, pointing upwards towards the top of the notebook. And when I get on the plane, the first thing I do is I take my traveler's notebook out of my bag, stash it in front of the seat, in front of me in the seat ahead of me here, just in that pocket there, and the pens stay upright. And what that does is, with the pressure change of taking off and landing and being in the air, you create a nice natural air gap for any of the air to escape through the lid. With my piston fillers, I just crack the piston just a little bit to give that airspace in the lid for that pressure differential to act as it should, according to the laws of physics and science. Regardless, that's my easy go-to when I get off the plane, or when I touch down. I guess I just take the traveler's notebook, put it into my bag, and literally 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, when I've got a moment to write again, it works fine. Nothing has changed. No messes, no explosions. If you feel like writing on the plane, do not write with your fountain pen. The pressure differential will make that ink come right out as soon as you tip it over, and you're going to have a big mess on your hands. And that is something I would caution or keep in mind as you're wanting to travel with fountain pens. If you do feel like you need to write with something on the plane, I typically just whip out a pigment marker, a ballpoint, roller balls. Those are all really good. But when it comes to fountain pens, that is perhaps a consideration. I'm hesitant to say it's a drawback, just given how much I love fountain pens, but it is a consideration if you are traveling with fountain pens. The other thing that I think really elevates the stationery experience is having a good desk, like the desk behind me. I love that desk. It's now my wife's desk. I'm have been more relegated over to my own corner of the room here, which is my computer desk, but doubles as a really solid writing desk as well. Regardless, when it comes to traveling, hotel rooms typically have a office area or a desk area, and I was really lucky because the hotel room that I had just had this beautiful view of the harbor there and the mountain in the background, and this desk just had a beautiful calling to it. It's not my typical aesthetic. It's a very modern desk. The chair is quite nice as well, but being in a different city and wanting to journal early in the mornings, I just found this place so beautifully inviting. Had a nice little lamp, and I just really liked writing at this desk, which I did quite a bit early in the mornings. The other thing that I got to do on the trip when I did have some downtime, other than constantly journal in my traveler's notebook, is sketch. There was a beautiful evening where Stanley Park, being very close to where I am, which is this amazing park right up against English Bay. Clearly, this was one of the most sunniest evenings Vancouver had had in a while because everybody was out. People were putting their lawn chairs onto the beach with their families, having a beer or a drink, and in some cases, people were even doing mini barbecues there and watching the sunset. And it was absolutely incredible. I had the opportunity to walk around, do a little bit of short biking here and there, and with me in my traveler's notebook, I pulled out my traveler's notebook and was sketching, and I got to sketch a beautiful sunset in just black and white. If I had more tools and more time, I probably would have sketched quite a bit more, but I kept it fairly simple. And again, I'm just really grateful that I have something like the traveler's notebook that gave me the ability to have solid sketch paper on me in a small format, and I didn't feel like I was hauling things around with me. I think I traversed something like 15, 20 kilometers in terms of walking and bike riding in an evening to have some free time. Those were some of the things that I brought with me in my stationery toolkit, and what I did with my stationery toolkit while I was out traveling. The everyday carry bag, as I mentioned there, I wouldn't bring that to work. I'd put that into my other backpack there. But when I was out and about by myself or traveling to and fro, I would keep that bag on me. I love the fact that it gives me a bit of a Indiana Jones vibe even wearing that bag, because it allows me to feel like I'm an adventurer exploring in a different place. And I've got something like the Indiana Jones notebook, in this case my traveler's notebook, to whip out, write things down, or draw quick sketches and things like that. Fountain pen ink combinations can be absolutely blissful, a match made in heaven, or sometimes they don't go quite as planned. My Kaweco Brassport recently, I wanted to change this to a black ink because I've been craving just working with black ink, which that's how I started out. When it came to writing good writing instruments, it was fine tip black ink. Black ink was my go-to. I like the look of black on blank pages. And I haven't actually used black ink in probably 5-6 years. I do have it inked up in my TWSBI Eco in an extra fine, which I occasionally pull out time to time to sketch, but not really for writing. So I wanted to bring back the writing experience of the black ink into my fountain pen, and the fact that I keep my Kaweco Brass on my traveler's notebook the entire time, I figured I'd put the black into this guy here and use that, both for just quick sketches and for short form journaling. Now, what ended up happening here is I picked up a cheap set of ink cartridges from Diplomat, just standard black, nothing fancy, and I plugged one of those into here, and this pen gave me a bit of a heart attack because it started railroading, it started having hard starts, hard stops. It was just inconsistent ink flow, and I started getting very concerned that I had done something to my nib, that the feed was perhaps a little bit corrupted. I might have pushed down on one of the fins in the nib feed there. So I was taking a closer look and kept trying things over and over. And finally I realized that this pen was working absolutely fine when the purple was in there and any other ink I've put into there, which isn't a black. But this particular Diplomat arrow seemed to have screwed up the beauty of the pen. So what I ended up doing was cleaning out the pen, taking out the Diplomat arrow, taking a blank cartridge and filling that with a bottle of TWSBI Black, which I have, a decent generous bottle of that, and putting it back into the pen. And the experience improved considerably. This is the Kaweco railroading, hard starting examples here with the Diplomat ink. As you can see, it's not a consistent writing experience. It would have some ink flow, then slow down, and then basically be non-existent to the point it was just non-functional, and then I would resume back again. So everything from railroading, skipping, which is kind of the same thing. Well, it is the same thing. Railroading and skipping are the same thing, and then hard starting. And hard stopping, I guess. So hard starts, for those of you who are not familiar with fountain pen terminology, hard starts when you can't get enough ink to flow after you cap the pen, or when you've stopped writing for a bit and then start writing again, the ink just doesn't get going. Which is kind of a great example down in here, which this would be a hard start. And then skipping is when the ink flow stops flowing. Skipping or railroading is when the ink flow stops flowing while you're writing. So here is a great example. Writing, and then it just stops working. And there's just no ink flow. Very, very curious, given the fact that this pen was working just fine with the purple in it. So I might have to switch the... This is with the TWSBI switch, the TWSBI Black. Now, I'd say the experience improved considerably. And when it got going after a while, there was a little bit of railroading and skipping here, as you can tell. It just kind of started going faint. But I think it was just the ink being swapped out through the nib section there. I didn't do a proper flush. I probably should have in hindsight, but it is way more consistent than when it came to the writing experience. Here's the writing experience as I wrote more with it, so no hard starting. And so I went on a bit of a research here. Every ink obviously has different characteristics depending on what constituents they're putting in, and it's not very well talked about in terms of what the recipes are, so to speak, of what's being dissolved into the ink to give it the characteristics of what we would typically say it makes one ink better or has better ink flow or better flow compared to a drier ink which has less flow. So there's a whole bunch of characteristics that go into each of these inks from various different manufacturers. Couldn't find very much about the characteristics, unsurprisingly, of a Diplomat black, and then I was trying to research the characteristics of the TWSBI black. What it comes down to, and what I found a lot out about, was really subjectivity. People had very subjective experiences with their respective inks. One of the most notorious inks out there for what people would call really good flow or consistent flow is the Iroshizuku Konpeki. Beautiful ink. I really like the blue on it, and I would say yes, my experience with this bottle of ink has been every single time I put it into any fountain pen, the ink just magically flows. My experience with black inks has been somewhat limited. I've picked up cheap black inks, literally $10 bottles or cheaper. So I'm going to have to experiment with blacks a little bit more, I think. I might go to the Iroshizuku line and look at their Takesumi, if I remember correctly, in terms of the naming. It's a beautiful black ink. The other thing that I noticed with this writing experience is that I like a rich, dark, just the midnight black. And both the Diplomat Aero and the TWSBI in the medium nib give a very different characteristic in terms of a little bit of a hint of brown or purple in it, which wasn't really what I was expecting. I just wanted a solid black ink flow. So when it comes to pen ink combinations, I guess, like I said, when it's perfect or when it's pretty good, you don't really notice, but when things go, when the match isn't made in heaven, things are very noticeable, and you start, at least I did, start going on a spiral of what did I do to my ink, or sorry, what did I do to my nib? Did I screw something up? Did I drop it? And you can go into a whole tangent here of when things can go wrong. Speaking of the Kaweco Brass Sport, I love this pen. I've talked about it a lot, so I've got a few videos on it. It's definitely showing character now. I've got some ink stains here that I should probably give a good little wipe. It's very patinaed, and I like that. Doesn't have the original shiny brass look of it, but I like the way it's developing its character here over time. The clip itself is a copper clip, and it's also patinaed very beautifully. Speaking of the Kaweco, they've recently launched a new sport, and it's a piston filler, which I'm very, very excited about. One of the drawbacks of the brass sports, unless you eyedropper it, is the very limited ink capacity in both the ink cartridge as well as the converter that comes with it. And I like to change out my inks quite a bit and very frequently. And so as much as I reuse ink cartridges, clean them out and flush them out, put new inks into them, it's still a bit of a process, but the idea of a piston filler sport is just very astounding to me, and I like the aesthetic of it. It's beautiful. The clip is integrated right into the body as opposed to just a slip on here, which can be annoying when that slips right off. And I think I might have to pick one of these up, or just keep it in mind in a future pen purchase. If you've picked up a Kaweco Piston Sport, I'm curious, what's your experience? Do you like it? They're sold out everywhere, so obviously people were waiting for this. I think the price is considerate compared to your typical sport pen, which the brass sport I think was around $100 if I remember correctly, and the plastic versions, these are 30 to 40 bucks Canadian. The prices I saw for the piston filler were up at the 230 Canadian dollar range, so quite a significant jump for a pocket pen. And I don't know if I could justify that much in terms of something that I bash around and could lose very easily. If you have a Kaweco Sport piston, please let me know in the comments section below what you thought about it, what you like about it, and if you think it's worth the money. Thanks very much for joining me today. Feel free to say hi in the comments section below. Take care, have a wonderful day, and bye for now.